Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 10-team PPR mock draft from the 3rd overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, a kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. In this mock draft, we'll be drafting up against the ESPN as well as Sleeper ADP. But before we could get into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 3rd overall spot, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 3rd overall spot. So if you are someone that is new to 10-team leagues, maybe in the past you're used to playing in a 12-team league, to me, there is a difference in draft strategy when you compare a 10-team league to a 12-team league. Now, it is not a completely different ideology, right? If you are in a fantasy football league, whether it's 10 or a 12-team league, in my opinion, if it is a league that starts either 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers and 2 flex spots, you are going to want to draft the wide receiver position early and often, because in the 2 wide receiver start, 2 flex start drafts, you could start 4 receivers at all times. In 3 wide receiver leagues with 1 flex spot, you can start 4 wide receivers at all time. So I think your main goal should be smashing the wide receiver position early. But, and this is not necessarily the biggest of buts, but I will make this known, in a 10-team league, I am more actively searching for that upper echelon quarterback or that upper echelon tight end. And that is because in a 10-team league, even your dumbest of league mates are still probably going to draft a pretty solid team. Basically, every single team in your league is going to be loaded to the gills. Sure, maybe there will be one guy that doesn't know his head from his ass and his team stinks, but if that's the case, then guess what? 9 out of 10 teams in your league are going to be very solid, loaded to the gills. Whereas in a 12-team league, the people that struggle are probably going to struggle mightily. The more teams, the bigger skill gap there is, in my opinion, in fantasy football. So in a 10-team league, the guy that might draft a quarterback in the 1st round, his team could still be very successful because there's only 10 teams. So what I will tell you is, in a 10-team league, I think everyone's going to have great running backs. Everyone's going to have great wide receivers. The way you get that edge up on your opponents is by having that elite quarterback or having that elite tight end, that positional advantage. This becomes even more of a factor in 8-team leagues. In 10-team leagues, it's definitely on top of my mind. Hey, I want to get that elite quarterback, maybe get that elite tight end. But in an 8-team league, to me, it is essential to success. But the draft here begins Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb. That is going to be the number 1 and number 2 overall draft pick. And I would say 99.999% of leagues. Now, with some leagues, maybe CD goes ahead of Christian McCaffrey, but those are going to be the top 2 picks in most leagues. Now, there are going to be some people like myself who like Tyreek Hill better than CeeDee Lamb, but ultimately, those guys are typically the top 3 picks: McCaffrey, Lamb, and Tyreek Hill. To me, at the number 3 overall pick, I don't want to get cute here. I love Tyreek Hill this season. I expect the Dolphins to be force-feeding this guy the ball every single game. Tyreek Hill has the upside to achieve over 2,000 receiving yards in any given year. This is a Dolphins offense that is heavily predicated on the success of Tyreek Hill. When Tyreek Hill's playing well, the Dolphins play well, so I expect Tyreek to have yet another huge season. Last year was an amazing season, but he got hurt. Had he have not gotten hurt, I think he could have easily topped that 2,000 receiving yard number. After Tyreek, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams, Jonathan Taylor, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Travis Etienne. Pretty normal start to the draft. I've talked at length about how I'm not the most confident in Devontae Adams this year, but I get why people like him because he is that nice safety blanket pick. Devontae Adams has been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for what feels like a decade at this point, right? Devontae Adams is and still is one of the best receivers in the NFL. The biggest problem with Devontae Adams to me is the fact that I think they want to run the ball so much that is going to heavily hurt Devontae Adams' upside to be that number one wide receiver in fantasy football, which is something you're looking at when you're drafting any player inside of the top 2 rounds. So Kyren Williams is the best running back available. Kyren Williams, to me, is starting to feel... I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident in Kyren Williams, but I will note, even if all of the narratives are positive towards Kyren Williams' health, we still have to understand that Kyren Williams has been hurt multiple times in his career. He's a guy that you could dub as injury prone. He's a guy that you could dub as being an injury risk. So to me, at the 208 in a 10-team league, I just feel like it's a little bit too risky for my liking. I think that Travis Kelce and Sam Laporta are both probably going to end up as second-round picks late August, early September when you do your fantasy football draft. But right now, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to get one of them in the 3rd round. So we're probably just going to go with a wide receiver here. Now, I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident in Chris Olave. The biggest reason as to why I don't like Chris Olave compared to most people is because I worry about the Saints offense's production under Derek Carr. Derek Carr was not the most accurate quarterback when throwing to Olave last season, and it just didn't really feel like they were on the same page. Now, maybe second year with Derek Carr, I do believe he looked a lot better towards the end of last season. I think I do kind of need to change my mind on Olave and start liking him a little bit more. I do have Ayuk ranked higher than him. I do have Drake London ranked higher than him. But since we don't really ever take Chris Olave, I will be taking him in this draft because I acknowledge the upside is humongous, right? The upside is huge there. To me, the biggest downside is just the fact that I just don't think that Derek Carr is very good. So after Chris Olave, Rashad with 2A's White, Josh Allen, Mike Evans, and wiki DJ Moore. So here we have a question mark, right? Because while I didn't love drafting Kyren Williams with that last pick, I am definitely a lot more open to drafting him here. Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, both still available. Both guys I could easily see being top 8 wide receivers this year. And I did wax poetically earlier about wanting to get that positional advantage at quarterback or tight end. So I think I am going to go with my gut, and my gut tells me to go and get that positional advantage at tight end. And then in the 4th round, hope that a guy like Josh Jacobs is there. This is a 10-team league, so I think it's a lot more likely. Or Joe Mixon. Guys, I feel very confident in having that top and top 8 upside. So we're going to go tight end. Now, this might aggravate some people because obviously Sam Laporta kicked the ever-living shit out of defenses last year, and Travis Kelce burnt so many of you guys because you had to draft Travis Kelce very early. It wasn't just a top 12 pick. In a lot of leagues, it was a top 6, a top 5 pick. Kelce gets hurt before the season. He comes back. He doesn't necessarily look the same, but he still was one of the best tight ends in fantasy football in terms of points per game. Had he have not gotten hurt entering into the season, I think he would have been the tight end 1 over Laporta. People are going to panic because Travis Kelce is another year older, but to me, I got Travis Kelce now ranked as my tight end number 1. I still believe he's the best tight end in the NFL. I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs offense, in terms of production, during the regular season this year is going to be so much higher. The addition of Xavier Worthy as well as the addition of Hollywood Brown is going to be huge for this offense. They're going to have a lot more scoring opportunities in the regular season. So that's why I like Kelce over Laporta. After Kelce, Alvin Kamara, Sam Laporta, Kyren Williams, Pat Mahomes, Derrick Henry, Drizzy Drake, London, Devin A. Chain, Josh Jacobs, Jalen waddled away, waddle. Isaiah Pacheco, Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Hurts, and Nico Cousin. Let's go bowling. I'm seeing that on like ESPN. People are really taking a deep sleep on Brandon Ayuk. His ADP is nowhere near the second round. And if you are an ESPN drafter, that is going to be a big steal for you. Lamar Jackson currently has the injured tag next to him because he's dealing with an illness. Motherfucker, I'm ill, not sick, right? He's been ill, but I'm not too worried about that, right? If he's sick, that doesn't impact the season that starts a month plus away. Joe Mixon is dealing with a hamstring injury. What I will tell you is that hamstring injuries are very concerning if they were to come up, I would say, a couple weeks before the season. Right now, I'm not as worried about it. But I will tell you, if he's still dealing with an injury and we are 2 weeks before the start of the season, I will 100% panic. Right now, though, I don't think that is something that we should panic about. I like James Cook a ton as well. We have seen some positive reports out of training camp about his new running back mate in the backfield, Ray Davis. But again, I still think that James Cook is the guy. I don't think that Ray Davis is going to be able to dethrone him, at least early on in the season, unless like Ray Davis comes out, he's getting like minimal touches and he's just house calling it every single time. I think James Cook's going to be the guy. But to me here, we already got the elite tight end. I love Lamar Jackson, but I feel like at running back, we are really going to be chasing if we go with the elite quarterback here in Lamar Jackson. I think by the time the 5th, the 6th round, there's going to be some solid quarterbacks there for us. And because this is a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league, I also want to hop back on the wide receiver train more than likely with the next pick. So we are going to go running back here, and we're going to go with Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon is probably one of the easiest guys to project at the running back position this year. The problem with Joe Mixon is he's one of the older guys, right? People, again, he's not ancient, right? But people nowadays in fantasy football, they see a guy get a little bit older. They see them lose a bit of that pizzazz they had just a couple of years ago, and they start to panic, right? It's like in SpongeBob when he needs to remember nothing except for fine dining, right? And there is just people throwing away stuff in his brain. They're shredding all of the other knowledge, right? People's brains go into DEFCON fucking 5. Or DEFCON 1, I don't remember which one's worse, right? Their brain starts to panic. Oh my God, he's getting a little bit older. He didn't look as great last season, right? People panic. Well, he was a top 12 running back last season. He is going to be yet again in Houston. This is an offense that we project, and not just me, basically every single person with enough brain cells to rub together knows that the Houston Texans offense is going to be a big swinging dick offense in the NFL, Indiana Jones style with his whip, right? And I think that Joe Mixon has that upside to score a bunch of touchdowns. He is a solid pass catching back. Is he one of the best pass catching backs in the NFL? No, but he is solid at it. His competition is Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce, who both reek to high heaven. So Joe Mixon is the clear workhorse running back on an offense that projects to score a lot of points. Not that complicated, guys. But people will make it out to be complicated because, again, he's a little bit older and, he hasn't looked as good over the last couple of years. Crimea River, baby. We love Joe Mixon. After Joe Mixon, James Cook, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Ramondre Stevenson. Now, I will tell you guys, I am as out on Deebo Samuel as it gets. I am someone that thinks that with Brandon Ayuk playing as well as he did last season, I think we're going to see Ayuk get even more targets, which is going to wean away from Deebo Samuel. The fact that they have McCaffrey there really hurts Deebo's rushing upside, which is something that really elevated him in that huge season that he had. But in the 5th round, this is a guy that any given game could score 25, 30 fantasy points. Again, is that going to be every game? Of course not. But in a league where you're starting 4 wide receivers a lot of the time, when you already have Mike Evans and Cooper Kupp in the 5th round, adding a guy with such big upside in Deebo Samuel, and he's also a guy where if something was to happen to Brandon Ayuk, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, Deebo Samuel would skyrocket through the moon. So Deebo Samuel in the 5th round, sign me up for that. Lamar, still available. I think if you were doing a real draft today, the fact that he has that injured note next to him would make people panic in a huge way. So I think it is very possible that he falls into the 5th round. There are going to be leagues, though, again, where people are very quarterback hungry, especially in 10-team leagues. Look at wide receivers: Metcalf, Devontae Smith, Malik Neighbors, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers. Now, DK Metcalf is another guy that I am pretty much out on when you have to select him inside of 3rd round, 4th round in a 10-team league. But in the 5th round, with how much skill this guy possesses, is very similar to Brandon Ayuk. I feel like it would be an injustice to my team not to take him, especially because we already have Tyreek Hill and Chris Olave, guys that could be very safe in our lineup, especially Tyreek Hill, where if DK Metcalf has a bit of a stinker of a game, it's not going to impact us as much. So the question is, do we want to go Metcalf or do we want to go Lamar Jackson? And things swing back around. We're going to be in the wide receiver range of probably Christian Kirk, George Pickens, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, more than likely. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bolster up my wide receiver room and then potentially look for a quarterback in the 6th round. So I'm going to go DK Metcalf. Again, a guy, do I love? No, I think JSN is going to be a lot more involved. I do have a lot of questions. I'm like the fucking Riddler when it comes to Geno Smith. Is Geno Smith still all that good? I don't know. I think that 1 year might have been a Linsanity run, a little bit Fugazi, a Wazi, a Woozy, but this is a brand new coaching staff. This is a coaching staff that has talked positively about DK Metcalf. So while I do worry about the fact that Lockett's there, that JSN is there, and I think that JSN's really gonna put things into fucking hyperdrive this season, in the 5th round, the guy is just too good for me to avoid him. After DK, we see Mark Andrews, Kenneth Walker, Stephon Diggs, Aaron Jones, Devontae Smith, Malik Neighbors, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Warren, CJ Stroud, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Keenan Allen, Rashee Rice. Now, what I will tell you is that my pick of Travis Kelce in the 3rd round feels foolish when I realize now that I could have gotten McBride in the 5th round. Again, I don't regret what I did because I figured that McBride would go a little bit earlier, but he doesn't, right? If I could hop in a time machine, I would go back and I would have done things differently. But again, hindsight is 2020. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle type deal, right? So Travis Kelce at the time made sense. I thought about it. I thought clearly, so I picked him. Again, there's going to be times in your fantasy draft where you wish you could just fucking rewind 5 minutes and make a different pick, but you can't do that, and I still like my team a lot. I like my team a whole lot up to this point. So based upon our roster right now of Mixon, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, Travis Kelce, DK Metcalf, it might be wise to go running back here. I love David Montgomery, but to me, David Montgomery feels like he could slip into the next round. This team already has 3 running backs, so very unlikely that they draft another one. This team only has 1 running back in McCaffrey, so I think they will draft at least 1, but probably not 2, and I think I'll be able to get David Montgomery. If I can't get David Montgomery, then I'm probably just going to go ahead and go quarterback with the next pick if I don't go quarterback with this pick. So I think we will go quarterback here. Anthony Richardson is a guy that has been on so many of my mock draft teams. He's been on so many of my underdog teams. He seems very polarizing. I understand right now that if you're in the 6th round, you're thinking, Nick, I want a safe quarterback, right? I want a guy that I feel confident will play the whole season, right? I know Joe Burrow's a guy that's been injury-riddled in the past, but Joe Burrow might feel like a lot more comfy of a click to you, right? Feeling like you're chilling next to a fire with some fucking eggnog. You're chilling out, right? Very cozy. You're cooking a s'more, right? A s'more. Whereas Anthony Richardson feels very much boom or bust, right? When he was playing, he was boom, right? Shout out the Costco guys. He was going crazy. He was spinning around defenders. He was juking defenders out of their fucking cleats, right? He was going crazy. But then he kept getting hurt. If Anthony Richardson is able to stay healthy, there is a very strong argument to be made that he could easily be the quarterback 1, especially because of his rushing upside, and especially because he has Michael Pittman Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs. He has a lot of great players around him. Jonathan Taylor to check the ball down to. So I like Anthony Richardson a ton. Again, I get it's not the safest pick. It's not wrapping a rubber around my team. But in the 6th round, if Anthony Richardson fell to me, I'm taking him basically every single time unless I already drafted a quarterback, because drafting 2 quarterbacks that early would be crazy. Important to note, we drafted Travis Kelce in the 3rd round, Anthony Richardson in the 6th round. To me, that means now you are not clicking another quarterback or tight end. You're just not drafting them because you drafted Kelce in the 3rd round. You are basically assuming that Travis Kelce is going to be a top 3 tight end, locked and loaded. To me, he's going to be the number 1 tight end, right? The only time you're sitting him is if he's on bye or if he's hurt. We don't root for injuries, knock on wood, right? So why would you draft another tight end who is just going to be burning a fucking massive hole in your bench, right? Burning a hole in your pocket. Why would you do that? You're never going to, even if Travis Kelce was going up against the best defense ever assembled, right? He's going up against whoever you believe is the best guy to stop Travis Kelce, put the clamps on him, right? Still, you're playing Travis Kelce because he's that fucking good. Anthony Richardson, you draft him in the 6th round. You're hoping for that upside. Now, I get Anthony Richardson is more of a quote-unquote injury-prone player, so maybe in that case, you might want to draft a backup quarterback. But again, when I draft a guy in the 6th round, I am just assuming he ain't getting hurt. Maybe he misses a couple games, but he's going to be the guy for me. And I could just pick someone up if something happens to him. Same thing with Travis Kelce. So I think drafting like a backup plan there isn't the best after Richardson, Amari Cooper, James Conner, Tank Dell, and David Njoku. So now the question is, do we want to play running back to roulette, or do we want to just take the running back that is going to be very reliable for us every single week? With solid upside because of the touchdowns, and with league-winning upside if something was to happen to Jahmyr Gibbs? Or do we want to shore up our quote-unquote wide receiver 4 spot, our flex number 2, get another wide receiver with top 12 upside, and then kind of play running back roulette? For me, most of the time, if I'm being honest with you, I would probably go with the wide receiver. But I want to go ahead and get David Montgomery here because, again, I think David Montgomery is a very safe pick with a lot of upside. I do believe in Jahmyr Gibbs this season. I believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to see a lot more work than he saw last season, and that is going to make him a lot more consistent of a player. But I know Dan Campbell. I know how the Lions are going to operate. David Montgomery was very, very good on the goal line. David Montgomery was good in short yardage situations. Now, if you watch David Montgomery and you watch Jahmyr Gibbs, it is night and day. Jahmyr Gibbs is significantly better, but I don't think that Jahmyr Gibbs, as long as David Montgomery is there, healthy, will ever be a true workhorse running back. They're still going to involve David Montgomery. Going to be very safe every single week. He has multiple touchdown upside every single week. And while I still think that even if Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't get handed the key to the city, right? If he doesn't get handed the keys to the backfield, he's still going to be very successful. And he still has that upside to be the number 1 running back because of how explosive he is, because of how many touchdowns the Lions are just going to be scoring as a whole, because Jahmyr Gibbs is going to catch a million more balls, compared to David Montgomery, right? He's going to be great. But David Montgomery in the 7th round, very safe with a decent amount of upside. So after David Montgomery, George Pickens, DeAndre Swift, Higgins, Calvin Ridley, George Kittle, me Timbers, Joe Shiesty. They're calling him Slim Shiesty now. Christian Kirk. The people, they're calling him Slim Shiesty. I wish I could do the, whose impression I was trying to do there. I just can't do it right now. My throat is just fucked. Pause. I don't know why. My throat has been just messed up ever since I went on my bachelor party to Vegas, and it might never return. After that, we see Roma Dunze, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin, Zamir White, Dak Prescott, Deontay Johnson, and the short king himself, Kyler Murray. So now we got a running back too. I think the safe bet here is just going wide receiver. My assumption on Montgomery, he's going to be a locked and loaded running back 2, and Mixon's going to be our running back 1. So we're just going to play for the higher upside flex pick, which would be a wide receiver. Jayden Reed to me is basically an insta-click in this range because of the severe amount of upside that he possesses. Now, I understand. Is Jayden Reed the clear number one receiver on the Packers? No. Is he the most likely? In my opinion, yes. Would I bet my house that Jayden Reed is the guy? No. So I think if you're in a bunch of drafts, you might want to draft Jayden Reed in some, Christian Watson in some. Maybe you throw that Willy Wonka golden ticket shot on Dobbs or on Dontavian Wicks later. But to me, Jayden Reed has that huge upside, that top 18-ish upside, and based upon where he's getting drafted right now, it's like the wide receiver 36 off the board, 37. Like, to me, that is upside that I want to be searching for, especially later on in the draft. There is the risk that this absolutely explodes in my face. He's not the wide receiver 1. Maybe he's not even the wide receiver 2. Maybe Christian Watson, now fully healthy, is scoring so many touchdowns, it's just hurting Jayden Reed. I can see that really happening. Jaden Riley Reed being a complete and utter bust. But I could also see Jayden Reed being the wide receiver 1, being a very reliable player on the team weekly with significant upside because I believe heavily in the Packers. The Packers believe heavily in Jordan Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet because they gave him a fat contract, a huge bag. So much money that it won't even fucking fit in the duffel bag, right? He needs a goddamn safe. Or not even a safe. I was thinking more of like, you ever watch one of those like bank heist movies and they go in the back where the huge safe is, and it's like one of those where you got to go like left, right, left, like it's your high school lock, and that's just what I imagine, right? He has so much fucking money, they need one of those things. Great movie is I can't remember the name of it, and people are going to be like, Nick, you're stupid. It's the one with the guy from How About Them Apples, the movie. You know what I'm talking about? Ben Affleck. And they're in Boston, and they try to rob the Red Sox stadium. Anyway, now again, people are going to be like, Nick, that's such an obvious movie. Like, everyone knows this movie. I know a lot of people know this movie, so there's going to be a lot of people in the comment section like, Nick, how do you not remember what the name of this movie is? I literally watched it like a month ago for the 3rd time. It's amazing. But that's just the type of safe that a guy like Jordan Love needs, right? Jordan Love needs that Secret Service level of protection when he's walking with his money. And maybe the Secret Service isn't necessarily the best at stopping things recently. You guys get what I mean. So after Jayden Reed, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, DeAndre Hopkins, and the best driver in the world, just kidding, an absolute douchebag, Jordan Addison. So back up on the clock here. We got our whole team filled out. Normally, if I'm being honest with you guys, calling a spade most of the time, my teams don't look like this. A lot of the time, there's just guys chilling on the bench before I draft my quarterback or my tight end. But in this case, we filled out the whole team already. Which again is different, but not different in a bad way, just a little bit different compared to how I normally look to attack my drafts. Now, we have a big question. Do we want to get Raheem Mostert, a pretty competent running back 3? We want Najee, who I think is going to look better than he did last season, but I still think there's going to be a certified committee. I still think Raheem Mostert is going to lose his job to Monsieur Devon a chain. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Lisa Ann. I do really think Mostert, even with a chain, could be very, very solid. So get that solid running back 3, or do we go with an upside Hollywood Brown pick, like, hey, maybe Jayden Reed doesn't work. That could pay off dividends in Kansas City. Now, normally I don't like targeting players that are on the same team as guys that I already have on my team, right? We already have Travis Kelce. We already have Tyreek Hill. The thing that will push me in that direction is the team really good? The Chiefs, probably going to be dealing out back shots weekly. Probably going to be able to hit these defenses with the rear naked choke, and they're sleeping in 4 seconds, right? Hit them with the Patty the Batty triangle that he hit on Bobby Green last night, right? So on the Dolphins, an offense I project to be great in the regular season. The Chiefs, it makes a lot more sense. So I want to go with Raheem Mostert here. I do slightly lean with the running back. I have Mostert ranked ahead of Najee Harris. If you want to draft Najee, ahead of Raheem Mostert. I'm not going to call you crazy. After Raheem Mostert, Zach Moss, Najee Harris, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Jonathan Brooks, the Browns defense, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, Christian Watson, 49ers, Javonte Williams, Brian Robinson, and Jerome Ford, F-150. Lots of talk about Chase Brown coming out now, about how Chase Brown's going to be the guy over Zach Moss. Again, I don't want everyone to overreact and panic when it comes to camp reports this early, but based upon the large amount of praise I'm hearing for Chase Brown, this is a guy whose ADP is going to come up quickly, right? Just like your cock when you wake up in the morning, a quick riser, right? Chase Brown is going to go from pick, let's see, right now, where is he on here? Chase Brown. I'm blind too, guys, so might take a second. 125 right here on FantasyPros overall rank. His overall rank is going to pass pick 100, I would say, by a week or two from now. If the buzz continues, and if the buzz gets really, if there is really people banging the drum for him, he might be a top 75 pick in a couple of weeks. Like, genuinely, that is how fantasy buzz occurs. And again, being the lead back, the pass catching back too, like the guy that's going to be catching passes on the Cincinnati Bengals, that's going to pay off for you, right? Mixon playing really well in Cincinnati. Sure, they kind of toss him away, right? But that's just because they didn't want to pay the guy, right? Mixon, sure. Is Mixon, in my opinion, better than Moss and Chase Brown? Yes. But when you're on an offense like the Bengals, you don't necessarily need to be the most skilled running back on earth. So now we're back up. I think we're going to go wide receiver and then hope Chase Brown swings back to us. Courtland Sutton did sign the contract. Sign the contract, big boy. Shout out Mike Tyson. Now that Courtland Sutton has gotten the kind of sign of approval by the Denver Broncos, I am starting to get higher and higher on Sutton. I was already very high on him, even with the contract situation, but now that it's all ironed out, there is so much upside here. I understand that Bo Nix or Zach Wilson, obviously it's going to be Bo Nix, right? But is he the best quarterback for Courtland Sutton? Probably not. But Courtland Sutton was scoring so many touchdowns last season with Russell Wilson, who wasn't even all that great. So now with the contract all ironed out, I like Courtland Sutton. He's the wide receiver 1 on the Broncos. You can get a wide receiver 1 coming off the board outside of the top 32 wide receivers, coming off the board outside of the top 40 wide receivers, coming off the board near pick 100. Sometimes fantasy doesn't have to be very complicated. I know we make it out to be so complicated. Everyone reads into every single camp report. They panic about certain stuff. They worry about all this stuff. Sometimes it's simple. To draft the guy that's the number 1 receiver on his team in a Sean Payton offense. Now, I'm going to be blatantly clear here. Gun to the head. JSN versus Sutton. I'm taking JSN most of the time. But we already have Metcalf. And again, I don't know, will Seattle be able to turn out 2 elite guys? I don't know. And I really don't want to be starting 2 guys on Geno Smith offense every single week. So even though Sutton's technically a bench guy, or JSN would be the bench guy, starting Metcalf and JSN in the same week on the same team feels really gross, in my opinion. So after Sutton, Singletary, Eckler, JSN, and Evan Ingram. If I drafted Evan Ingram in the 11th round, I would be jumping for joy. I just think that that's a very safe bet in Jacksonville with a lot of upside like we saw last season. Now we are going to go with Chase Brown here again. Now, maybe I'm just buying too much into the hype. I told you guys to, hey, simmer down a little bit on the hype. But this is a guy that we saw a lot of flash plays last season. Now, we didn't see a lot of consistency because of Mixon. But if all of these hype reports are correct, again, his ADP is going to skyrocket, so I like that pick late. We have 2 bench spots left here. Probably going to go 1 wide receiver and 1 running back here. After we went ahead and drafted Chase Brown, Zeke, Gus Edwards, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Keon Coleman, who is another guy that's getting a lot of hype out of camp, Jameson Williams, Kyle Pitts, Zach Charbonnet, Jake Ferguson, Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, J.K. Dobbins, Brock Bowers, Antonio Gibson, and Jordan Love Me Tender, Love Me Sweet. At wide receiver here, I think we are going to go, again, this late, I'm just going to take an upside shot on Josh Downs. I do like Josh Palmer and Jacoby Myers more, but if Michael Pittman Jr. maybe has a more down year, maybe Josh Downs becomes the number one guy here with Anthony Richardson. We have Anthony Richardson, we get that stack. If Josh Downs has this incredible season, then so will Anthony Richardson, so we're kind of parlaying our bets together. We're betting on Anthony Richardson, so we're going to bet on a late round Josh Downs. Do I think that is the most likely pick out of these guys to pay off? Fuck no. I do not. I think it's more likely Mike Williams pays off. I think it's more likely Jacoby Myers pays off, Joshua Palmer, Brandon Cooks. But we're going to parlay our picks together here and go Josh Downs. But I think we're going to wait to pick Josh Downs because I think the better pick here is a running back and then Josh Downs because the running back might be gone. There was a lot of hype for Jaleel McLaughlin early on in the offseason process. Now there's hype for Estime. I've seen some hype for Javonte Williams. It seems like whoever ends up being the lead back in Denver is going to pay off. Sean Payton, notoriously great with producing great running backs. So whoever the guy is, I think will be productive. Question is, which guy is it going to be? I love the lead back in Carolina. Let's see where he got picked. He's the rookie that they just drafted. I think he will be the guy for the future of the Carolina Panthers. The question is, coming off of that injury, when will he become the guy, right? We see Jonathan Brooks come off the board at the 907. Jonathan Brooks, to me, looked like the best running back in this class when I watched his tape. Problem is, coming off of a very serious injury. Now with modern medicine, based upon where the injury occurred, which was just a little bit into the season, right? It's not like he got hurt in January or February or something, but it's not amazing that happened. So I think Chuba could start off as the lead back, and Chuba, I know he's not like Christian McCaffrey or something, right? He's not amazing, but he's good enough to maybe fend off a rookie who wasn't working with the team in the offseason because he's hurt. Like, that could lead to Chuba being a steal late. I fully think Brooks is a way better running back, but again, just coming off the injury, I think it's worth the shot late. And then we're going to go ahead and get Josh Downs again. We are just going to be parlaying our Anthony Richardson pick with Josh Downs, and maybe Josh Downs ends up being a lot better than we previously thought. So after Josh Downs, we see Kendre Miller, Jacoby Myers, Rico Dowdle, Marshawn Lloyd, Ty, Chandler, Khalil Herbert the Pervert, Roshan, Johnson, Tucker, Ravens, Mitchell, Hawkinson, Butker, Cowboys, Jets. So for defense, you want to draft a defense playing up against a not-so-hot offense in week 1. To me, nothing else matters. Obviously, you hope that the defense is good, right? Would it be better to have the Steelers playing up against a shitty team compared to, say, a defense that I don't like as much, like the Giants or the Raiders? Yes. But all that matters to me is the matchup. Let's see if Fantasy Pros has updated things. If not, so you still can't check the matchup out. By August, I'll have this all down in my brain so I could just recite every single great matchup. Right now, week 1 schedule, we got the Ravens versus the Chiefs. Right now, as if it's going to change, right? Packers, Eagles, Panthers, Saints, Vikings, Giants, Patriots, Bengals, Steelers, Falcons, Texans, Colts, Cardinals, Bills, Titans, Bears, Jaguars, Dolphins, Broncos, Seahawks, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Browns, Commanders, Buccaneers, Rams, Lions, and Jets, 49ers. Some teams I'd be interested in would be the Bears up against the Titans. I like the Steelers versus the Falcons. Maybe the Falcons aren't able to play that great first game. Kirk Cousins, maybe they have a down game. Bengals versus the Patriots. Vikings versus the Giants, and then Giants versus the Vikings. Off the top of my head would be some great snags. So we'll go with the Steelers here because the Steelers have the best defense, in my opinion, of that group. And while I'm a big fan of this Falcons offense, and I think the Falcons are going to really shut up a lot of the Kyle Pitts haters, the Drake London haters, the Bijan haters, week 1, that might not necessarily be the case, right? Very possible they come out slow, especially because Kirk Cousins is coming off of such a serious injury. Now we are going to go kicker, and we are going to go with best kicker available. I like all these guys. We'll go with Tyler Bass of the No One Circles the Wagons, like the Buffalo Bills. So our team, to recap, we got Anthony Richardson as the starting quarterback. Running backs are Mixon and Montgomery. Our wide receivers are Tyreek Hill and Chris Olave. Our tight end is Travis Kelce. Our flexes are Jaden Riley Reed and DK Metcalf. Our defense is the Steelers. Our kicker is Tyler Bass. Our bench is comprised of Raheem Mostert, Cortland Sutton, Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard, and Josh Downs. So let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about today's mock draft. Do you love the team? Do you hate the team? Let me know some picks you might have done differently. We got a B, but this is a 100 out of 100 in my heart. I love you guys all so much. Check out one of the videos on screen if you haven't seen them already. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button down below. I love you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another banger of a video. Have a great one. And as always, good boy.